guys, Daeyungi here, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be different than any of my usual uploads, but will hopefully fill anybody in who hasn't been following. In this video, I'm going to be explaining in depth the K-Pop Flex Festival stress. Everything that went wrong from start to finish, from the deceit before and after the event to the danger thousands of people were put in, just to name a couple of errors in an entire catalogue of issues K-Pop Flex now have under their belt. Now before we start, I do want to say it's really important to remember that absolutely none of this negativity is directed towards the artists who performed on both days of the festival. They were the only true professionals in this whole charade, and I'm sure everybody there would agree that they were the absolute only highlight of the weekend. I'm in no way intending to aim any hate towards them. They came, they did their job, and they were incredible. I wish we could say the same for K-Pop Flex themselves. Part of me was tempted to just let this whole thing go and move on with my life, but then I see that in literally the same weekend, K-Pop Flex have already announced that they will be doing this all over again in a year's time, and if this video can help even one fan of the potential stress they could be getting themselves into, then my work here is done. I also uploaded a poll in my community tab asking if you guys would like to see this, and I think the results speak for themselves. I understand that with any event of this size, it's natural that there would be some problems, but the absolute poor organisation on K-Pop Flex's part and the sheer number of lies is absolutely not something they can get away with under the excuse of teething problems. Because I do strongly believe that with a lot of the things that have happened, they knew exactly what they were doing. Okay, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. On the 9th of December 2021, K-Pop Flex posted their first tweet announcing that Europe's first mega K-pop festival, their words, would be coming to Frankfurt, Germany on the 14th of May 2022, with both Monster X and G-Idol hashtagged. Monbebes, Monster X's fans, were very excited that Monster X would be performing in front of them in Europe on the 14th of May, as this was their 7th year anniversary date. This is important to remember for later on. Tickets for the event would go on sale the next day on the 10th of December, when at this point only 2 of the supposed 7 acts had been announced. If you can even say that, they were hashtagged in a tweet and their pictures were on a website. One of the tweets about ticket release even ats the entire wrong place for Ticketmaster Germany's official Twitter, which doesn't look the most professional, does it? Especially when they got it right in a different tweet. In the beginning, the festival was advertised as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see your favourite K-pop artists perform, and it was supposed to be long sets. The concert was going to be from 6 PM until 11 PM after all. That's a long time. That's why it was a festival and not a concert. The festival was supported by a multitude of news outlets from NME to Music Week posting about the event, and K-Pop Flex were running multiple competitions from here throughout the whole build-up to the event for fans to win tickets. So far, sort of good, you'd think. At this time as well, the company were announcing every act with clues before announcing the group itself days later. So for example, the teasing started on the 29th of December, but the next act, NCT Dream, were not formally announced until the 1st of January 2022. Might not seem like much of a problem, they're just trying to create a hype around the event, but tickets were already out. People were getting antsy trying to decide whether or not it was worth making the journey over, as a lot of people would have to travel far and wide to get to Frankfurt, something K-Pop Flex were very aware of and in fact thrived off. There is some confusion here too with this act's announcement regarding whether or not all 7 members of NCT Dream would be performing at the festival, as the official announcement video K-Pop Flex posted from NCT Dream themselves did not feature Mark and Haechan. On the 5th of January, K-Pop Flex tweeted to reassure fans and confirm that all 7 members of Dream would be at the concert. Spoiler alert, that was a lie. We're going to have to start keeping a lie counter on screen because they'll build quite quickly. On the 13th of January, ENHYPEN were added to the lineup, and a whole 2 weeks later, on the 27th of January, Mamamoo were announced. Again, fans were very excited about these 2 announcements. This would be the first time ENHYPEN would get to perform in front of such a large crowd of fans since their debut, and this was the first time Moomoo's Mamamoo fans would get to see them in Europe. This excitement was so high that on the 29th of January, just 2 days after the most recent act announcement, K-Pop Flex tweeted to say that the show was almost sold out. Anybody who can count to 7 will know that we aren't quite there yet. There are still 2 acts that have not been announced for the concert. After days of fans tweeting asking them to release the full lineup immediately, the remainder of the lineup was finally dropped on the 2nd of February, adding AB6 and Kai to the lineup. Fans were upset to say the least, not because they weren't excited to see them, but because they've just found out after 2 months of waiting that their fave will be coming to Europe, and now tickets were almost sold out. In fact, they actually sold out the same day that they announced AB6 and Kai attending the concert. K-Pop Flex promised to do something about it, So they did. It took almost 2 weeks, but on the 14th of February, K-Pop Flex announced that the festival would be getting a second date and that the pre-sale would commence the very next day. In quite an informal tweet, I must say, considering all the official build-up images they had before the announcement, the "oh yeah, there's a second date now" tweet felt very rushed and last minute, ironic considering how the actual shows went. But then came the following: Eri Monbebe, who had already bought tickets, says worst nightmare. K-Pop Flex then followed up their day 2 announcement with the news that Monsta X would no longer be performing at the festival on the 14th of May due to circumstances beyond their control, and instead they would be replaced by label mate IVE, so Monsta X could perform on the 15th instead. Now you may be thinking, oh well, it can't be helped, it was circumstances beyond their control, at least the group will still get to perform at the festival on the 15th, and fans have been offered the opportunity to switch their tickets to the next date, or they could buy extra tickets to go the next day at a 10% discount. But there's a couple of things we have to note here. K-Pop Flex said it was due to domestic reasons that Monsta X couldn't travel on the Saturday, but as one fan kindly pointed out, other groups such as IVE and ENHYPEN arrived on the Saturday to perform the same day, so that's not the reason. The 10% discount they offered you to buy additional tickets was only for a limited time and ended before the official full lineup was announced, so that was next to useless because how can you decide if you want to go without knowing if your faves are going to be there? And the big problem here is that fans had already purchased tickets and accommodation to go on day 1, the 14th. Accommodation and flights nowadays in a post-COVID world are very expensive and often non-refundable. It's also very important to note here that you know the official announcement videos that every artist had done saying they were excited to come to K-Pop Flex on the 14th of May, like the one I mentioned NCT Dream did? There was never one released for Monsta X confirming that they would be there on the 14th. Their video only came once news had broke that they would be there on the 15th. Therefore, this led many fans to believe there was actually one big huge plan here all along, in which they were using Monsta X as a scapegoat for their mess and to entice fans to buy tickets in the very beginning, when in fact Monsta X were never meant to perform there on the 14th anyways. And I mean, that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? It just so happens that Monsta X can't come on the 14th, but fear not, we conveniently have a second date they can perform at that was only supposed to be due to high demand, not lineup changes. It was very suspicious to say the least. On my timeline to the event, I'm now on the 22nd of February, and the full lineups have still not been announced. We're still missing one more act from day 2. We know from the Monsta X and IVE situation, and the fact that the event had included ONEUS in their day 2 lineup, that the lineups for both days would differ. So how are fans supposed to decide whether or not to purchase tickets? What if the final artist announcement was somebody they didn't want to see? Or alternatively, what if it was someone they really wanted to see? The final lineup finally came on the 23rd of February, where K-Pop Flex announced that Dreamcatcher would now be performing at the festival on day 2, and Mamamoo would be doing both days 1 and 2. There you have it. Lineup complete, right? Well, you'd think so. On the 11th of March, K-Pop Flex added Kai to the day 2 lineup as well, and then they finally confirmed the full lineup on the 14th of March. I know it's really confusing, but basically we have now gone from a 1-day festival with 7 acts to a 2-day festival with 7 acts on day 1 and 8 acts on day 2. Fans wanted to be happy about the 2 dates, but there had been so many changes and now an uneven amount of acts on each day. It was honestly a mess the whole time. They should have announced the full lineup for day 1 and then the eventual full lineup for day 2 all at the same time rather than all this teasing, all this messing around. The fans deserved to at least know what they were paying for. Let's move on to the actual festival itself. Time for day 1, 14th of May 2022. Although doors to the venue opened at 4 p.m, there was a Korea festival during the day which had dance performances, Korean food and culture, etc. from doors opening at 10 a.m. I didn't actually attend the festival portion personally, but when I turned up at the venue in the afternoon, it was very, very busy during the festival area and a very warm summer's day in Germany, before taking into account the thousands of people who were suffering in it. Although I myself was seated, I spoke to a few people who were standing and they have kindly shared the absolute mess of their experiences with me for the video. The first one came from my friend who attended day 1. Knowing that he had an early entrance ticket and would need to go and collect a wristband, began the hunt to do so. But there was of course no signposting that would help you find where you're supposed to be other than the little bit of a map that they posted on Twitter. When he eventually found where he was supposed to be, he was given a pink wristband and no explanation as to why. But then went through the gate and asked if he was early early entry, he was given a different wristband, a green one. How on earth are people supposed to know why they're coming or going? Because it doesn't end there, folks. When inside, he saw somebody else with a different wristband, a blue one. And when he asked her what the wristband was for, she explained that she was early entry front of stage, same as him. So why were the wristbands different colors? It turns out that the wristband color correlated to a certain section and place to stand. So green was the left of the runway, blue was in the middle right in front of the stage, and yellow was at the end of the runway in front of where general admission were stood. So my friend had absolutely no say in where he was stood, and what was worse is that fans were apparently able to pick their own wristband color and where they would be stood. This information was not given to him when he entered, and get this, when he asked if he could therefore swap the wristband after it appearing that fans could choose their color, he was told no because it was determined by the ticket sold. The early entry ticket holders were very greatly ripped off. Early entry was supposed to be at 3:30. Would you be surprised if I told you that didn't happen? There are multiple tweets and threads on Twitter from early entry ticket holders explaining the absolute nightmare that they had. Fans who had been there for hours with hopes of getting a good view of their faves were starving, dehydrated, and hyperventilating from the complete lack of organisation. And when they asked staff to help, they simply did not care one bit. Fans had to take it into their own hands and try to bring some sort of organisation to the mess, and thousands of people waiting because it was getting dangerous. The staff didn't seem to like that, but they weren't doing anything, so what do you expect? My boyfriend and I were seated for the concert, so we didn't actually arrive at the venue until around 3 p.m. And when we did, we simply followed the crowd towards the entrance. If we hadn't, I don't think we'd have figured out where we were going. The lead up to the venue was just a big long empty path. There were no stadium staff directing people, no signs, so people were forming queues that seemed to lead to nowhere. Others were walking in different directions. It's a confusing area, and we basically were ushered a certain way by a policeman that was there, and that was not the direction the whole crowd were following, but we eventually got to the ticket entrance anyway. Your actual ticket was scanned by a machine with a barrier, so at least we knew everybody had some sort of ticket inside, but ticket checking beyond this point was dire to say the least. Once in the venue grounds, our plan was to check out the merch, get some snacks and a drink with it being a long show, and head to our seats. But the merch, well, all the way up to the event, K-Pop Flex were releasing images of K-Pop Flex shirts, plushies, and other merchandise. And when asked by fans if there would be artist-specific merch, so an Enhypen t-shirt, an NCT Dream t-shirt, they were informed that there would be more info to follow regarding this. But the information never came. On the day, the only artist-specific merch I could find was of Monster X, who were performing the very next day. We didn't end up buying any merch and instead set off looking for food. But when I tell you the queues for food and drink stands were some of the longest, most unorganized mess I've ever seen, I really mean it. Nobody knew where the queues were starting and ending, and the queue seems to be separate for food stands and drink stands, so it meant waiting a very long time for both, and you probably wouldn't have time to do that. You had to pick one or the other. We were curious to know whether or not there would be food and drink inside with less people waiting around, so we asked a member of staff. She simply said, "I don't know." My friend actually waited 2 hours in the sun for food, and honestly, seeing the state of the queues, I absolutely believe that. So we decided to abandon the idea of food because staying at least hydrated was more important for us. You can go much longer without food than you can water, was our thinking. So we joined one of the very long bar stand queues. About 15 minutes into our wait, a girl came to our section of the queue who had just been at the front and told everybody they have nothing left, just beer. No water, no sodas, nothing. Just beer. Everybody was physically deflated because she was right. And when we looked at it, when you actually think, we hadn't seen anybody leaving the queue for a while with anything but beer, but there were no signs or no staff telling you that before you personally reached the front of the queue. We only knew because one fan kindly told us. By that point, you get to the front of the queue, you've already been waiting a good half an hour. You've already wasted a lot of time. The concert had not even started yet, and there were no non-alcoholic drinks to be found anywhere. Security staff had taken everybody's drinks off them at the entrance, or at least they were supposed to, unless you've had a Tetra Pak. Now, I'm British. I have never seen one of those before now, and I wouldn't have even known where to get one. And I'm sure a lot of people attending would have been in the same position if you're not local and haven't heard of them. Apparently, you can get them from a supermarket called DM in Germany, but a lot of things in Germany close on a Sunday, including this supermarket, so if you were on day 2, you'd have been screwed anyways. So, empty-handed, we attempted to find our entrance in seats. We didn't really have much choice. We had to ask multiple members of staff to help us find our seats, and we ended up sat in the wrong place twice. To the fellow concert goers who had to be the ones to ask us to move, thank you for being really polite because the staff were less than helpful and pretty much directed us to the wrong seats twice. We really appreciate your kindness, we did not do it on purpose. During this time, my boyfriend had gone outside to try and find us something to drink because from our block, the steps literally led you right back outside the stadium. There was no drink or food inside where we were sat. There were bars on the floor for those who were standing, and I actually watched them carry cases full of drinks away, I'm guessing to the outside bars. So they absolutely misjudged how many people would be buying drinks inside the standing area versus outside, it seems. They probably forgot that once people get their standing position, they can't really move because they'll lose it. My boyfriend eventually came back with 2 Cokes for us. Not the water I wanted, but of course beggars can't be choosers. He confirmed that they still had no water anywhere, and the person serving at the bar actually refused to give him more than 1 drink at first. He had to argue that his girlfriend was inside and dehydrated, and he would absolutely not be impressed if I got ill. It would be the guy at the bar's responsibility if I passed out, basically, before he agreed to take his money. I had seen people carrying 4+ drinks each when we arrived around the venue, so if they were now deciding to limit how many drinks people got on a hot summer's day in Europe, I think they started a bit too late. You should not be limiting liquids to anybody at that point during a hot summer's day. The concert hadn't even started yet, and I literally lost count of how many people I saw being carried away on stretcher gurneys, either passed out or in absolute fits of stress. It was also around this time they removed some tape which seemed to be holding back some people stood further back. Yes, they weren't barriers, it was just red and white tape. Once the tape was removed, I physically watched everybody run forward. From your seats above, that's honestly quite a sight to see. It's scary. I can't believe the security didn't do more to control that. It could have been really dangerous had somebody have fallen and been trampled. They were really lucky that nobody got hurt. Anybody who went to the concert or saw people posting about it on Twitter, let's move on to what was the craziest part for me, the pre-show. Because this has got to account for a lot of lies. I cannot believe they did this. According to K-Pop Flex's website, the show will be starting at 6 p.m, which makes sense considering they said each artist will be getting a lengthy set, something which interestingly I cannot find written anywhere anymore. But I know I'm not the only one who saw that. At 6 p.m, there was an announcement in the venue from the MC that the K-Pop Flex pre-show will be starting soon. The pre-show? What pre-show? We knew nothing of a pre-show. It turned out they had tweeted about it at 2:30 p.m. when the concert was due to start at 6, when most of us hadn't seen it because we were either on our way there or already inside the venue. The first person up in the pre-show was a lovely woman, bless her, I can't remember her name, who was basically there to advertise Busan and why you should visit. She had some promotional videos and a speech, etc. The pre-show also included a dance crew who did some long Squid Game interpretation thingy, some more people talking, a mayor, some more dancing, a fashion show, and I don't really know beyond this point because my boyfriend and I realised we had been absolutely swindled, and more than anything, I just couldn't believe it. We had travelled all the way from the UK to Germany, spent hundreds of pounds and taken time off work with the intentions of going to attend a 5-hour festival which we had purchased tickets for. Now when the festival was supposed to be, we were watching a 2-hour long advert. I genuinely felt really bad for every person who had been standing all day and thought they were nearly there before finding out they had another 2 hours to go before anything even started, but also everyone performing in the pre-show because it's not their fault the fans were all lied to, but at the same time there must have been some sort of non-disclosure agreement in their contracts because not one single word of this pre-show was uttered anywhere until the day of the concert. So part of the way through this pre-show, we decided to go back outside with the hopes of trying to find some food somewhere, and sure enough, most of the crazy busy food and drink stations had definitely calmed down now because everybody was inside expecting the concert to start. Still no actual still water, only sparkling at this point, but we did at least get some food. We sat outside for a while enjoying the air and some bratwursts before going back inside to our seats. The actual schedule at this point had been tweeted and revealed that the first act, IVE, would not be on stage until 8 p.m, so we knew we had plenty of time. We actually noticed more and more people coming outside to the food and drink stands during the pre-show, as if slowly everybody was clocking on that they were wasting our time. It's not the fact that there was a pre-show that people are mad about, it's the fact that K-Pop Flex lied about how long the concert would be, when the concert would start, to get us to attend. The pre-show wrapped up about 7:20 p.m, but the actual concert still did not start until 8, technically later if you don't include the usual safety videos every concert always has, which in my opinion should have started slightly before 8 to ensure that the concert and show ran on time. The actual show itself ran fairly smoothly, but the whole experience, of course, still had its flaws. Like I said earlier, the artists were true professionals. A mic problem one of the IVE members had was very quickly sorted, the sort of things you expect to see at a concert, you know. There's also a moment in which Mamamoo's Hwasa slipped and fell down on the stage. I'm not sure if it was actually wet, the stage, and that there was poor attention there from the event because I couldn't see it very well from my angle, but aside from that, we were seeing more and more poor people being carried away, feeling unwell, and fans in certain standing zones actually being refused water even though they could see fans in other areas getting it. And then there were other less serious issues where you simply expect better. Like, for example, the sound wasn't really the greatest in certain places, and honestly, I think it was just disappointing more than anything that instead of getting the 40-minute sets from each artist, I now later on can't believe I believed, we were getting 3 or 4, maybe 5 songs max from each artist. They had the artists emceeing for each other in some places too, which did increase a bit of their time on stage, and there was an attempt to subtitle the artists on screen, who definitely were speaking from a script, and the subtitles were still often delayed or sometimes even incorrect. We actually decided to leave the concert slightly early during NCT Dream's last song. I hate leaving concerts early, but please understand that this stadium was full. We knew that 44,000 people were going to be trying to leave at the same time, and we'd have a nightmare getting back to our accommodation. Plus, the final act was Kai, and we had tickets for day 2, so we knew we'd get to see him anyways the next day. We were very fortunate. So we left with plans to get an Uber back to our hotel because we were staying around 50 minutes away on public transport, and it was quite scary there at night. We booked multiple Ubers, all of which cancelled around 5 or 10 minutes in, and in the end we had to walk to the train station anyways. It was a 15-minute walk, and by this point we had so many Ubers cancel on us, everybody was already heading out of the stadium. We managed to squeeze onto a train after waiting around only 20 minutes, but it was a very stressful experience. There were policemen outside the station, but they were not directing anyone at all. I know multiple people who waited up to 2 hours to even fit onto a train. Now I know you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with the concert? But K-Pop Flex tweeted there would be extra S-Bahn trains on before and after the event. Whether or not that was actually true, I have no idea. It was a long and horrible trip home for a lot of us who had already had a very miserable and disheartening day. 15th of May, 2022, day 2 of the K-Pop Flex concert. Before getting onto my day 2 experience, let's talk about K-Pop Flex's social media presence since day 1 and the fallout online from unhappy fans. Instead of addressing their misdemeanors, K-Pop Flex decided to upload a few interesting tweets in the meantime. They had decided to tell fans over Twitter that ONEUS would no longer be able to perform on day 2 of the concert as scheduled. But get this, fans already knew because ONEUS themselves had posted that the group had been hit by COVID. We also found out from some friends ourselves because no one officially had made a statement. K-Pop Flex had only decided to say something with a simple quote retweet of one of ONEUS' tweets. Super professional. The official announcement from them regarding ONEUS not attending the concert only came after day 2, once it was all already over, with the simple caption of "get home safe" basically. After day 1's show, there also came the announcement of K-Pop Flex 2023, which would be in Frankfurt, Germany again, this time in June when the weather would be even hotter. What a fabulous idea. I got an email informing me of it when I was still at the train station with thousands of other people desperately trying to get home late at night in a foreign country they didn't know, aka the last thing I wanted to see at that time. The next day they tweeted about how there would be free water stations with this photo. However, once fans and K-Pop Flex themselves realised and noticed that the fan in the photo, who was getting the water, was in fact holding money to pay the man, they quickly deleted the tweet and replaced the same tweet with a different photo, which showed people getting water from a tap station instead. This was apparently within the festival area, but I know for a fact that multiple people couldn't find it. They also tweeted that it would be even hotter this day and to bring sunblock, to which fans responded by saying you can't bring sunblock, it'll only get taken off you at the venue, like it did to them the day before. Throughout this whole time, fans were responding to every single tweet of theirs asking for the schedule for the day, so people could decide when to arrive. Instead of just releasing this like the people wanted, they kept posting random distraction tweets to pass the time about artists who have performed the day before, food at the festival, etc. The official merchandise lanyard you could purchase on the day with the lineup and times had said that the first act of the day was Mamamoo, and they would be on at 4:05 p.m. Apparently there was also a tweet confirming that the show would commence at 4, but I couldn't find this anywhere because it has now since been deleted. Very interesting. I spoke to some fans who attended day 2 to hear their experience. This one fan I spoke to was in the standing zone. They arrived at 9 AM and went to the standing entrance where they were told there were no wristbands for them and normal admission had the same entrance as front of stage, which made zero sense. Every 10 minutes fans would come to security asking what entrance they were at and got completely ignored, and they had to wait for hours in the sun watching security flirt with fans and do not much else to help control the crowd. At 12:15 they finally began letting everyone in, but because of the pure lack of organisation, everybody just ran for it, for a good 500 metres. That is a long distance to be running in a big crowd of thousands of fans, and even if you don't want to run, in a crowd of that size, if one person starts running, you all have to, or you will get crushed in the madness. This fan I spoke to managed to get a good view at second row, but that wasn't without feeling absolutely horrible afterwards. Nothing actually happened inside the venue then until 1 PM. It was at 1:20 that they had a dance performance to what must have been the same Squid Game interpretation we saw the day before, which ironically went on longer than any artist actually performing at the event. This was then followed by a random dance game at 1:50, which was absolutely pointless because nobody had any space to dance. But there was no more pre-show, not like the one we got the day before that went on and on. Maybe K-Pop Flex clocked on that the fans didn't want it, and it was a very big mistake on their part. Fans had to start playing music on their own Bluetooth speakers to entertain themselves because otherwise they just had the crowd stood there in silence, unable to move, unable to get any water, food or drinks because they would have lost their place. I personally again had seated tickets for this day. After seeing the mess unfold yesterday, and still despite their complete ignorance on social media, I'm not gonna lie, I still actually had high hopes that there would be some sort of improvements on the second day. How wrong were we? Doors were supposed to open at 12, and knowing for a fact they're probably going to be doing their pre-show nonsense again, we weren't in any major rush to get there. When we arrived, we quickly were able to find food and still water. The woman who served me at the pop-up bar looked so confused when she saw the visible shock on my face that they actually had water. It cost me €7 per cup of water because they make you buy the cup as well, and when you try to return the cup and ask them to put a drink in it again for you, they say no, they take the cup off you and give you another one. Now that doesn't make any sense to me because surely it's a lot more COVID secure for me to keep hold of my one cup and you fill it with beverages rather than giving my cup to somebody else then and spreading my germs along basically. But from the amount of people who asked me where I got the water when they saw me with it because they couldn't find the so-called free water stations, I'm guessing there weren't a great deal of water around, clearly. We were sat outside the venue for some time before I checked Twitter just out of curiosity to see if the schedule had gone up yet. This was at 2:45 PM, and they had just tweeted a few minutes prior saying that the event was going to start at 3 PM. Yes, not 4 PM, 3 PM, in 15 minutes time. We had to hurriedly find our way inside to our seats with a number of other people who must have discovered the casual tweet at the same time. Our seats were quite far away, and at the stadium of this size there's lots and lots of stairs. Again, I reiterate, it was a very hot day, and we were actually pushed aside a few times, not from fans, but from paramedics who were trying to get fans who were passed out from exhaustion and dehydration on gurneys to first aid. Before the concert even started, again, like yesterday. We eventually got to our seats, and there seems to have been no pre-show, but a lot of silence for the fans who were waiting around, which makes sense now because we don't really remember hearing anything outside, except the music videos starting. You know, the ones they always play before concerts. And sure enough, like they said, the concert started at 3. A lot of people on social media could not believe it. They were still on their way there, expecting it to start at 4. So why on earth would they move the concert forward an hour? Was it to spite people who had decided not to arrive early to sit through the pre-show they didn't pay for after what happened yesterday? Was it to get it over and done with? Because I have photographic evidence from fans who were in the standing area seeing the staff that they did see, although there wasn't much. They looked so done the entire time and were visibly angry at fans who were just stood there trying to survive. The situation K-Pop Flex created with this was such a dangerous one. I can't imagine how frantic those still on their way to the concert must have been after finding out they were moving it forward an hour. There was no official schedule for the day, so how would they have known? I can imagine fans on the train on their way there. From the train station to the venue, it's like a 15-minute walk on like a pretty straight road. I can just imagine people running there to try and make it in time. There were a lot of fans specifically there to see the likes of Dreamcatcher, and they will have missed them because they were not on stage when the lineup said they would be. It's completely unfair. If I'm being honest, the vibe the whole second day felt off to me. We watched the security on the floor level not pay any attention to fans and where they were going. Fans were moving between zones without really anybody checking their tickets. And the crowd was definitely a lot emptier than the day before, which could have been for a multitude of reasons. Selling less tickets for the second day of a festival, which is pretty natural. People who had tickets and attended on day one thinking, nah, I'm not going through that again. Not gonna lie, I was almost tempted not to go as well. I literally only went because I wanted to see the groups who I didn't see the day before, and I'd already spent the money. And then of course the fact that they changed the start time, so that would explain why a lot of people weren't there. I can't decide if day 2 ran pretty smoothly when inside, or if they just wanted to get the concert over and done with, because that's honestly how it felt to me. They had a group like Dreamcatcher with an amazing discography covering another group's song when they only got to perform 3 of their own songs. You had AB6 teaching us NCT and Blackpink dances when they could have been performing more of their own music. You have a 7-year-old group like Monster X who were there wanting to spend their anniversary with fans, instead posing on stage as the sweet guy, the sexy guy. It's so sad at this point. Honestly, the audience were bored. The camera team were leaving fans on the big screen for a really long time who did not seem at all comfortable to be on the screen, and hardly any cameras were on Monster X themselves. IM himself even said, I know you guys probably aren't satisfied with this.
I'm not sure you guys are satisfied or not, but if you guys
Did he mean the segment and like what the members were doing on stage compared to the brief of what they were supposed to be doing on stage? Or did he just mean in general? We'll never know. But he was right. Fans were not at all satisfied. At least there was going to be the goodbye runway like the fans got for day 1, where all the artists came on stage to say goodbye to fans at the end. Oh yeah, that didn't happen either. Since the festival, many fans have written to K-Pop Flex to express their anger and upset, asking for refunds. Emails which of course, as far as I'm aware at this point, have all been ignored. Fans have taken to Twitter to share their experiences and discontent, so I'm going to be sharing a few bits here that I couldn't really slot anywhere else into the video, just some extra fun things that'd be good to know. One fan spoke to a member of security, and he said that only around 25 members of security were there for the 44,000 attendees, because they didn't want to hire more staff. Fans paid €300 for VIP seats with the promise of the best view of the stage, and instead got nowhere near that and a view blocked by a large crane. The parking situation was such an unorganised mess that there were people having trouble arriving and exiting, people were going to miss their flights. The sound was so bad that fans struggled to hear. On day 2, I had further back seats than on day 1, so I can vouch for this. I could barely hear Monster X during their entire set. Some fans were told that they did not need a wristband for their zone, and then when they got to their zone, shock horror, of course they needed a wristband and were shouted at as a result for not having one, even though it was them who told them they had run out of wristbands. We would never have even known if we needed a wristband or not for where we were sat, because on both days, no staff observed us scanning our tickets in. There was just a barrier lifted for you to go through once you scanned your tickets, basically. Aside from announcing both the 2023 shows in Frankfurt and now a 3-day show in London in 2023, there has been some interesting activity from K-Pop Flex since the event. A representative for the company actually took to German media to say in an article that fans didn't want water, and as well, rejecting a lot of other criticisms that they received. I'm not sure exactly what they meant by that, but if they were referring to the people in standing not wanting to move from their positions, can you blame them? You move after waiting all day, you lose your spot. But aside from that, what they said was completely out of order. The fans are not at fault here, but K-Pop Flex aren't willing to accept their faults either. Trust me. On the 17th of May, 2 days after day 2 of the festival had wrapped up, K-Pop Flex finally took to Twitter to release a statement to address the criticisms they've received from attendees since the concert. Well, sort of. The statement basically said they will take everybody's feedback on board for next year's event to be better. I personally have worked in customer service and particularly customer complaints for many years, and I can assure you right now that is not an apology, and I don't want people to fall for it and think it is such. The statement is basically code for saying, stop asking for refunds, you're not going to get them, we'll make sure there's more water next year, but we're not going to address a huge part of the problem, the fact that people did not get the full show they paid for, not even half of it. The statement promises faster communication about show changes next year, but the thing is, we got no communication until it was too late. The pre-show was not a last-minute decision. They were planning to do that all along. They had the performers and speakers there ready, and it was set in stone. I can't believe they're trying to pass that off as kind of one of those last-minute changes. The concert was never meant to be 5 hours, and they knew that. They just didn't tell us. There's also been a lot of discourse on Twitter because K-Pop Flex's statement has unfortunately accomplished what they wanted it to. A lot of fans have accepted the empty statement statement as an apology and are now telling other fans to basically get over the whole situation. Now, nobody can tell you how to feel. I can't tell you whether or not you should accept the statement as an apology. It isn't one. I mean, doesn't the fact that they tried to blame fans for the whole water situation prove that they're not sorry? But I can't tell you what to decide. But at the same time, fans also cannot tell each other to get over it and stop being upset. If you weren't there and you weren't somebody who personally was ill or fell sick on the day, you do not get to tell them how to react to the situation that they were put in after they spent money on what was supposed to be a positive, exciting experience. Honestly, I know the tone of this video is going to sound so completely ungrateful, like I'm not thankful for the opportunity to see some of my favourite groups perform in a huge stadium with over 40,000 other K-pop stans. Of course I was excited and grateful, but I would be even more grateful if the fans got what we were paying for. Honestly, if they had told us that instead of a long set, each artist would be getting only 3, 4 or 5 songs, I genuinely would have reconsidered spending all that money to take the trip. And K-pop Flex know that. That's why they didn't tell us. I know for a fact that I probably missed out a lot of drama from the day because everybody's experience will have all been slightly different, but the be all and end all is that the entire weekend of what could have been an amazing time for a lot of people around the globe was ruined by a completely unorganized, completely dishonest, and completely disrespectful company. I promise you now, they do not care one bit about K-pop fans' health or giving you the opportunity to see your favorite artist perform live. They care about your money and that is it. The more of it you can give them, the better, and they will carry on doing this. There's always the hope that maybe they will learn from their mistakes, but because so many fans will ignore their flaws because they were so happy to see their faves, the company know they can and will get away with this sort of thing again. The general consensus amongst everybody I've spoken to brings back one word in common: disappointed. I know me making a video like this won't go back in time and stop them from ruining my weekend. I know it won't get me my money back, and they simply don't care how I, you, or any of the other fans feel. The main purpose of this video is to fill in those who didn't know exactly what was happening and educate anybody considering attending a K-pop Flex event in future. I know it's extremely tempting when you think this would be the one opportunity in which you can see your favorite artist perform, but that is exactly how they get you. They know us fans are vulnerable. We are far away from Korea. We can't just pop on down and see our groups perform. They know that we're at the mercy of companies like them, but it's up to us to at least try and let them know that we won't take this sort of poor treatment and improper organisation in future. If they're going to hold events such as these, they need to prepare properly for such large numbers and not lie to fans throughout the whole process about what we're actually paying for. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and thank you so much everybody who sent me your stories. I honestly appreciate it so much, and I am so sorry you did not get the amazing experience that you deserve. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to share your own story with me in the comments if you're comfortable to do so. I would love to hear them, and it'd be good for us all to see that we're absolutely justified in our anger. If you're new here and not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload. I won't lie to you like K-pop Flex, so that's a good start. And as always, my social medias will be on screen. That's my Twitter and my Instagram. I always follow back fellow K-pop stans, so let's be friends. I will see you next time. Bye guys!